Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Pip Courtney in Brisbane. Coming up on the Rural Quarter, finally some good news for wool growers.
We're running all the sheep we can on this farm and looking for land to lease to run more sheep on.
But first, as the floodwaters recede in the nation's food bowl, farmers are only now beginning to assess the full extent of the damage. Wine grape growers in the Griffith region have been hit hard, with predictions some may be forced to leave the industry. And the floods came at a particularly bad time for rice growers who were preparing for harvest. From the New South Wales Riverina, Peter McCutcheon reports.
Rice farmer Hayden Cudmore desperately needs to drain his fields, but he can't pump the water back into the creek system.
If I happen to drain it, then it's going to affect someone downstream.
So it's like a house of cards?
Something like that, yeah.
So from this one field alone, over the next few weeks he'll be pumping the equivalent of 10 Olympic swimming pools a day to higher ground on his own property.
It's quite amazing to the extent of where we've seen the water go. It's no one around here in living memory has seen any water like it.
In this irrigation country, the floodwaters are taking their time to recede, and farmers are only now counting the cost.
Rice crops under, cotton crops completely, virtually under. Yeah, it's been bad for the horticulture, the viticulture. It's just one of those sort of years where it rained and rained over a period of 6 or 7 days, and it just wouldn't let up.
Hopes for a good year for wine grapes have been dashed. This is a Ruby Cabernet grape, and as you can see, it's ruined. The water only came about 3/4 of the way up these plants, but that was enough to ride off the entire crop. And the tragedy is, these grapes were ripe for harvest just before the floods hit. The 30% of grape growers in this region who haven't harvested face some tough decisions.
They're going to find it very difficult, hoping they'd get their crop off and at least have some income. They're not making a profit, but at least have some income to keep going for another year. And I think a lot of growers would leave now, probably leave the industry.
A harvest that was going to run for weeks could be over in days.
For the first time in more than 2 decades, Australian wool prices are booming on the back of demand from China. Many WA farmers who gave up on wool in the 1990s are now looking to restock. Catherine Diss has more.
Jeffrin Toole is one farmer who stayed true to wool. He runs up to 10,000 sheep on his farm in the great southern town of Williams and is finally seeing his hard work pay off.
We're running all the sheep we can on this farm and looking for land to lease to run more sheep on.
He's not alone, with top quality wool going for as high as $20 a kilo. Other farmers are returning to sheep. It's a far cry from the 1990s and the early 2000s, when the reserve price collapsed and drought forced many producers out of the business.
In Australia, the sheep flock is at its lowest sort of thing since about 1950.
But the rise of markets in China has given wool auctions a new lease on life.
We've had 18 months of good wool prices. We are actually stabilising in the market, which is a very good way for the industry to be heading at the moment.
Demand for Australian wool from China is expected to remain strong for some time. And while this is giving farmers the confidence to return to the sector, it'll take them years to build up the number of sheep on their properties. For wool farmers like Jeffrin Toole, it's a reward for not giving in.
I've had some doubts through the 90s that whether we should be here, but we're here producing wool, and we enjoy producing wool.
It's estimated it will take at least 3 years for Australia's wool clip to catch up with demand.
The federal government has defended its live export regulations after a second video emerged showing animal cruelty at Indonesian abattoirs. The images filmed by Animals Australia show the inhumane killing of cattle at 2 abattoirs in Jakarta. It's believed the livestock was exported from Australia. Similar footage sparked an industry shutdown last year. Letitia Lemke reports, and a warning viewers may find this vision disturbing.
This footage has sparked another investigation into Indonesian abattoirs. There are claims the animals are from Australia, but that hasn't been verified.
Certainly, I was shocked by that footage. Again, I don't want to see that footage.
Last year, live exports were suspended after Animals Australia released vision of similar counts of cruelty in West Jakarta. Now there are calls for all live exports to be stopped again immediately. But producers and exporters say problems in the billion-dollar industry can be fixed.
This is going to be investigated, and where there's transgressions, there's a system of sanctions that are in place. So clearly there's a rule book, and that rule book will be used, and that's very important, and that's what the industry wants, that's what the Australian public want.
After last year's outcry, the federal government brought in tough regulations to make sure it wouldn't happen again.
Under the new arrangements, the exporter is responsible for his supply chain, and he's responsible for the animal welfare within that supply chain.
Regulators are now investigating where the animals came from. If guilty, exporters could be suspended from trade into overseas markets.
There will be mistakes, there will be slips, I said that right at the beginning, but the system ensures that we can deal with those slips and mistakes.
There are serious questions about government monitoring, with animal rights groups twice raising the alarm on possible cruelty. The minister won't say if the abattoirs had been audited or accredited under his new laws, but says there are regular audits and breaches in abattoirs can and will be picked up by government officers.
$30 million of horseflesh went up for sale recently at Melbourne's biggest thoroughbred auction. The yearling sales attract buyers from around the world who say the thoroughbreds are still good value despite the high Australian dollar. Guy Stainer reports.
4 years ago, a filly was bought at this auction for $210,000. That horse was later named Black Caviar. And Black Caviar's father, Bella Spree, has 36 yearlings for sale here, more than any other sire.
A lot of people here hoping to find the next Black Caviar.
The horse this year has been more popular in the sales ring than ever before, so we're really happy with where he's sitting at the moment.
This Bella Spree colt was passed in for $195,000.
195 is good value off a $25,000 service fee. It's nearly 8 times the value of the service fees.
Look, we'll probably trade about 30 million in yearlings over the next couple of days. The average price of the yearlings here will be somewhere between 70 to 75,000.
The sales have attracted buyers from South Africa, Britain, South Korea and Hong Kong, who enjoy bidding in the absence of some of the world's biggest stables.
Well, this is my 6th trip to Melbourne for the sales, and I believe that, the Melbourne sales represent value for money.
Potential buyers have been doing their homework in the past week, shortlisting their thoroughbred targets. While all the talk of the track is of Black Caviar, here at the yearling sales, other bloodlines are likely to fetch more money.
We'll probably be looking more towards Costa del Lago, which is a well-known sire in Australia, and also, of course, is the sire of our champion Sacred Kingdom.
The premier sales finish on Wednesday.
Done. All done.
There are signs the troubled wine industry is turning a corner, with a promising start to the 2012 harvest. But many grape growers warn they'll still be struggling to make a profit. Peter McCutcheon reports from the Sunraysia district on the border between New South Wales and Victoria.
It's a dream start to the year for Sauvignon Blanc.
Everything's right. Beautiful day to harvest, under 20 degrees at the moment, down to 12 degrees overnight.
Wine grape growers at Kumiala, north of Mildura, have been doing it tough in an industry struggling with oversupply. But there are signs this year the quantity is down and the quality is improving.
The price is slightly up, but we'll be here next year, put it that way.
The freshly picked grapes need to be delivered to wineries within 4 hours. But wine grapes are something best grown in moderation.
We planted too many grapes, say 10 years ago when things were going well. There wasn't enough thought go into it.
No one would have made a profit out of wine grapes for, I would suspect, since about 2005.
The Wine Grape Growers Association says across Australia there are lessons have been learnt.
There is every sign that adjustment has started, but I think that most people in the industry would agree that the adjustment is not happening as fast as we might like it to occur.
The industry may have had its fair share of troubles, but on a beautiful blue sky morning like this one, the harvesting conditions are about as good as it gets. Hopefully a sign of better things to come.
And finally, Kalgoorlie is better known for its mineral wealth and its red dirt. But in a suburban street in Kalgoorlie, one resident has planted a tiny vineyard and is busy producing the region's only locally made wine. Emma Wynne took a taste.
It's better known for its mines and red dirt, but in a suburban street in Kalgoorlie, Jeff Painter has planted a tiny vineyard and is busy producing the region's only locally made wine. And it's literally bottled gold.
That was something I thought of many years ago, and it took me a long time to work out how to put it together. It has everything you want, gold and wine.
Is it intended to be drunk or just looked at?
It doesn't get drunk very often, but I do offer to recork it with the gold in it if people do drink it.
For the past 10 years, Jeff has been growing grapes at his home in the goldfields and producing his own vintage.
There's a fair bit of disbelief. You can't have one up here, but yes, you can. Always had a general interest of wine, and I basically happened upon I heard about a course, a correspondence course, and I thought if I enrolled it would be interesting to pick and choose the subjects, and before I knew it I was enrolled in a 6-year Bachelor of Applied Science. So now I've got that, I've got to use it. I actually had to do a study when I was studying. I did a climactic study between Kalgoorlie's region and the Riverland and the Riverina in South Australia and Victoria, and it's almost identical. The only difference is they have the what's left of the River Murray. Water's the key, yes.
So far, Binduli Wines is still a large-scale hobby, balanced with Jeff's day job flying around the world as a mining surveyor.
Well, they're so close. Mining, wining, it's only one letter different, and the same letter's upside down. So it is a long-term plan to move more into the wine industry, but I like both industries.
And that's all for this edition of the Rural Quarter. I'm Pip Courtney in Brisbane. See you next time.